Hey everybody, Calandros here. So on, I believe it was the 17th, Monday, I went to a show in Atlanta. It's the furthest I've ever driven for a concert, is at least as far as I can remember. Um, like I saw shows in Maryland, but I don't think any of them were. I don't think I ever had to drive anywhere near as close. So this was about a 9-hour drive up to Atlanta. Um, was there for 2 days, and really, I haven't been in Atlanta since I would say probably since I was like, maybe 13 or 14, something like that. Um, God, the city is totally different now. I mean, it's grown vertically so much. Um, like it gave me serious nostalgia vibes for DC, and it really made me realize how much I miss in some aspects being in the city. So it was interesting. That aspect of it was interesting. Um, so the venue was the Center Stage Theater, specifically the Loft. So the Center Stage, for those of you who have never been to Atlanta and been to this venue, is actually three venues, and it's the bottom venue is the largest venue of the three. It's like which is the Center Stage Theater proper. They have like wrestling events there, like Ring of Honor and stuff like that. It's I think around, I want to say between 2,300 and 2,500. I think. The next venue up from that is the Vinyl, which is the smallest of the three venues. And it's very nice actually. When I came in, because I was able to walk from the hotel. It was only about a 10-minute walk. So when I get there, there's a big line of people. I'm like, oh. But actually, all those people were lined up to go into the Center Stage Theater. So I went right in, and you go up the stairs up to the Loft. The Loft is actually on the top floor. So Vinyl was in the middle. And so I kind of took a peek at the Vinyl when I went up and through the door there. And it's a really nice venue. It's like, I think it's more of an acoustic venue. So like kind of folk acts and like jazz and stuff like that probably. It's like all wood floor. Just a really nice looking venue and a sharp. I don't want to rag too much on the Loft because it looks like a rock club. The aesthetics actually, and it's actually a really nice venue. So you go up there and it reminded me a lot of like, the Jack's, which is the venue I used to go to all the time when I was a kid, and all concrete. When you go in though, there's a bar on immediately on your right. NeO Obliviscaris' merch was on the left, and then in the back corner there's a wraparound little seating area and window that kind of wraps around behind where the bar is, which is actually really cool. And it gives you a nice view of the city. That actually is pretty neat. And I saw some people kind of hanging out there waiting for the shows to start and stuff like that. And then there's a little back corner, which I don't know what purpose it serves other than for merch. But that's where Wintersun's merch was, and Wintersun had a ton of merch. I mean, just a metric shit ton of merchandise. I think probably no less than like 8 or 10 shirts. A time stress ball, which has got to be the most awesome in joke. And there was a big cheer at the end of the show because Yari threw one out into the audience, and that got a big cheer. But yeah, the time 2 stress ball was pretty awesome. they may have actually been sold out of it. Because I didn't see one there available on the counter. So like drumsticks, they had vinyl. They like had a gatefold vinyl LP for Four Seasons, the collector's edition one with like the instrumental tracks and stuff like that, and the isolated tracks, which is really cool. So I picked up. I tried to get a Obliviscaris tour shirt. They were out of my size. So I got the, it's kind of like the Cthulhu logo, which I thought was kind of cool actually when I looked at it. It's like, the tentacled thing. I don't know exactly what it's supposed to really represent, but it's pretty cool anyways. But it's just the logo on the front. There's no tour dates or anything, which is unfortunate. And then I picked up a shirt for my favorite song on Four Seasons, which is Loneliness Winter. Each season had its own shirt. And the girls at the merch table told me that was probably the most popular shirt, at least on the tour thus far. And they were kind of wondering why. And I was like, well, it's the best song on the record. So she was like, well, then, that's probably it. But anyways, I also picked up the tour shirt, which is beautiful. And it has, of course, all the tour dates on the back. And I didn't see any merch for Sarah Longfield. I don't know. I don't think her record is out yet. She just got signed to Seasons of the Mist, who is the label for NeO Obliviscaris. And I don't know who Wintersun is on. May also be Seasons of the Mist. Not positive on that one. I actually never really paid attention to who their record label was. But anyways, so they when I got there, I think it was probably about 15 minutes till 7. Show started at 7. So I was able to grab merchandise. There wasn't a ton of people there. There was probably about, and I would say this venue held probably maybe 1,000 people. I think vinyl was somewhere around 500. So, there was maybe 500 people when I got there. So it was like half full. Everyone was, up against the stage at that point. So took a couple pictures, waited for Sarah to come out. And so the way I'm going to construct this review is I have some videos that I shot. Now, normally when I go to a show, I tend to shoot full songs. In the case of this one, I did not shoot any full songs, and it was a conscious choice on my part because I wanted to enjoy the show. Wintersun NeO Obliviscaris, this is the best show I've ever been to from a top to bottom perspective. I think Therion was maybe more impressive as a single act when I saw them live, just because of the craziness of their just presentation, with so many people on stage and how complex everything is. But I mean, when you look at how complex, and we'll get to that actually when we get to NeO Obliviscaris, some of the complexity there is insane as well. So, so I'm gonna play some of these clips, and I have a clip for Sarah. I have maybe 2 or 3 clips for NeO Obliviscaris, and then the rest of the clips are from Wintersun. They're all fairly short. I think the longest one's around 2 minutes. And I really wanted to enjoy the show, but I did try and take some parts of songs that were recognizable, important, good, whatever, like big riffs or recognizable sections. So you'll kind of see that when we get to it here. I recorded Yari's end speech going into time when it came out for the encore. Bands don't really do traditional encores anymore. It's all pre-planned encores. There's no spontaneous encores anymore. But anyways, he so I was sitting there waiting for Sarah to come out, and I was wearing my Vector shirt. I had a couple people come up and were like, "Oh, Vector," which was cool. Shows that there's still people who are hoping that that David can make something happen with that. I mean, it seems like he's writing some new material, so I don't know when we'll get it, but you know, we'll see. I'm hopeful. The little snippet we heard from the new song sounded really awesome, but it was only like 30 seconds. But more. It was more along the lines of like some of the more progressive Vector stuff, less thrashy and more like more along the lines of, say, Recharging the Void or Cygnus Terminal. I think it reminded me of the song Cygnus Terminal was what it really reminded me of, which is a more kind of a bit of a come down track after Charging the Void, which is just balls to the wall intro to Terminal Redux. So I was waiting, and was talking to a couple other people there, and just was just sort of chilling, waiting for the show to start. So Sarah came out. She played a very, very short set, which, I mean, there are, these shows, when you have a headline show, usually the opening act, it does only get maybe 20 or 30 minutes. So it was about 20 minutes. It was a little shorter than I thought it would be. I figured it'd be about half an hour. But there was a longer setup time between her and NeO Obliviscaris, probably because NeO has a larger stage show. They have more members in their band, obviously. And you have to worry about the violin and all that kind of stuff. So I think they gave maybe an extra 10 minutes for setup. Then I think, like, for example, the transition from NeO Obliviscaris to Wintersun seemed like it was less time. So, but anyways, so she came out, and I hadn't really heard too much of her. I hadn't really heard any of her new stuff except the one that she released 2 days ago, which is a cool track, and I believe she did play that. That was one of the. I think she played 3 songs. It was one of the 3 songs she played, and it's interesting because I've been following her for a long time. Actually, I've been following her for several years, and she was in a band called Define Constant, which was really cool. Kind of Scale the Summity, and her new band her band is very Scale the Summit like as well. But she was actually doing some videos and putting out stuff that was more like super melodic and more along the lines of like Chon or Covet, and it was very mellow. So I was wondering if that was kind of the direction she was going to go, but definitely not. This was all like super, I mean, very technical, like 95% tapping, which, that's kind of really her thing. She plays, what the hell are they called? The headless guitars. Strandenberg. So she plays one of those, and so I got a little video from that one here. Let me fire that up here. Quick scene change. Whoop. Transition. There we go. All right. So this is Sarah. This is like a 40-second clip. So we'll roll that, and then we'll start. We'll talk a little bit about NeO Obliviscaris, and I'll go through the set list. I don't have a set list for her. None of the dates that she's played at have any set lists posted yet. And it may be because, like I said, she just got signed, and I don't think she actually has a record yet that she's really promoting. She's just sort of, she's just kind of trying to get her name out there, which is what you got to do when you're. I mean, she's very young. I don't know how old she is. I think probably 20s, in her 20s, and she's just great, man. She's like super talented. She does a lot of videos with Rob Scallion and stuff like that. So she's very funny. She's got a very funny personality and stuff. So she's really cool. So if you've never heard of her, I definitely recommend checking out her stuff. I wish I could remember the name of the new song that she just put out, but if you follow Seasons of the Mist on Twitter or anything like that, it was like they posted it just in the last 2 days ago. And she got some criticism because, people were like, oh, it sounds like Animals as Leaders. And I made the point that people don't seem to realize that Animals as Leaders did not invent that sound, that sort of like post-metal, like super technical, progressive, whatever you want to call it. They did not invent that. I don't know who really did, but the first band I know of that was doing that sound was Scale the Summit. A full 3 or 4 years before Animals as Leaders was even around. So, I really feel bad for her. And this happens all the time. I've seen it with reaction channels where people say that X thrash band, not to call out Vin and Sorry too much here, but like X thrash band sounds like Metallica. You hear that all the time, but it's just because people associate a sound, a musical style or sound, to a particular band, and then I think wrongly judge other bands based on what that sound is, and I don't like that. I don't think it's fair to, especially a younger artist like Sarah who's just trying to get started. Of course she has influences, and if you asked her, I'm sure she would probably tell you Tosin is probably a huge influencer on her guitar playing and sound. So, I don't think there's any doubt about that, but I think her sound actually draws more similarities to like a mix of Scale the Summit and a band from Canada called Pomegranate Tiger, which is kind of like people call them the Canadian Scale the Summit, which they bet they are, but they're more technical than Scale the Summit is. A lot more about ambiance and it's hard to describe. I struggle sometimes to differentiate them between a band like Animals as Leaders, which I think sometimes goes way too far over into the technical side of things for the average person. For me, I don't care. I'm a guitar player, so I have no problem listening to, crazy shredding. But, Scale the Summit, I think, does more with ambiance, tone, melody than a lot of these other bands like, Mandroid Echo Star, I would say another band that does it very well is Polyphia. Does it very well with a little more of a pop twist. And who else? Chan is a really good one. Chan and Pliny are two really good examples of bands that have that sound and are very much more melody focused. Intervals is a tough one because Intervals is amazing. I love that band, and I think Aaron Marshall's sound is much more of a I think it's a lot different compared to the other bands, because when you look at like Animals as Leaders, I never feel like Intervals is really even all that technical when you compare them to the other contemporaries that they tend to get lumped in with. Their really only similarity is that they are instrumental. In fact, actually, their first album, they weren't even instrumental. They had a singer, kind of like a, I don't know what you would call almost like a sort of a hardcore, metalcore type of singer guy. And I feel like that's another band where they get lumped in with these other bands, and they're very, very different. I think Intervals is probably the most different. When you talk about all these other bands that are in this sort of style, Intervals sort of stands alone as a band that really has their own sound and identity, and I think a lot of the credit of that is to Aaron's, melody-focused guitar playing that really, he doesn't get very flashy. He tends to really, couch everything in the melody of the song, so it's not really a lot of shredding. It's not to say that there's not great guitar work. There definitely is. Like, songs like Meridian and stuff have some pretty awesome guitar stuff, but it's not like crazy. And he does have guests from, like, Pliny plays on Libra, I think is the track he plays on. And I really actually, hopefully, if I, when things, I just got back from this trip, and hopefully when things settle down a little bit with me here, and I can get back to doing more reviews. One of the things I would like to do is review some stuff off of their new album, and I haven't even gotten a chance to listen to the whole thing front to back yet. It's been out for like 6 months, and I've heard a couple songs off of it, but I just haven't gone all the way through it, which really bugs me because I really love the band. So anyways, let's give a listen to this one here. This is like I said, I don't know what song this is, but so that was whatever song that was. But you kind of heard there a little bit the how she kind of really goes pretty heavy into that song had a lot of shredding, but there are a lot of other parts in that 20-minute set that she played that were more ambient and mellow. The one thing, if I were going to make any kind of a criticism, which for reactions and stuff like that, I'm going to try and be as critical as possible because I think it's helpful, especially to new bands. And I don't know if she'll ever see this, but the one thing I would say is that when you look at a band like Scale the Summit, and I'm going to try and compare it to other bands that are similar in sound. I mean, you could use a band like Obliviscaris as an example, but I think it's pretty unfair to compare a band like that, which is a very different type of music. So I think a good comparison would be a Scale the Summit or Chan. And if you look at those two bands particularly, their songs have a very clear flow to them. And the one thing I would say is a lot of the stuff that Sarah was playing, I felt like it jumped around, like it was just too schizophrenic. There were parts that were like, there were parts that were awesome, like different melodies, but there didn't seem to be good transitions. So like I would say, my advice to her would which is crazy because like she's like leagues beyond me when it comes to guitar playing, but if I'm giving some sort of advice, it would be that to focus on the transitions between sections in the music. So like you have like these more faster frantic parts, and then you kind of move into these slow sections, and it's very abrupt. And I think a large portion of people who are not musicians have a really, really difficult time with songs like that because they can't grab onto the structure of the song. I mean, for people like me, it's not so much of a big deal, and I think for a lot of other musicians, it's not as big of a deal. But I think for your average non-musician person, it's very difficult for them to get to find a groove on a song if every 40 seconds or so it's making these massive tonal shifts. So when you listen to a band like Scale the Summit or Chan, their songs have there are transitions, and sometimes they're abrupt, but there seems to be a flow, and they don't abandon riffs too quickly. there will be like a melody, and I like one of the great examples I think of that is a song like Atlas Novus, from Scale the Summit, which, you know, has crazier sections throughout the song, but yet the song is still very, very mellow, and it's incredibly difficult to play, but it doesn't really sound like it, and that's a great trick because, if you can fool your audience into thinking that your stuff is not like just technical shredding, which some people just automatically will try and distance themselves from. It's really, really helpful if you're able to trick people in that way. And I think that's one of the great gifts that Scale the Summit had. And I mean, I'll be totally honest, I think that's the main reason why I really hated the new, and hate's a strong word, but I really did not like it, the new Scale the Summit album. And I think that comes down to them losing 3/4 of the band. When Scale the Summit became the Chris Lutsford Show, I think the band really suffered because I listened to it, and I didn't like the production, which was already a bad thing. It was very cold, very sterile. It reminded me of what's a great example of that? Actually, I think it was even worse production than Animals as Leaders. Oh, I know a good example. I think we'll go with Animals as Leaders as a good example because I think that the production there was even worse because Animals as Leaders tends to have very cold, very precise production, which I think is intentional, really. And I had that same feeling from the new Scale the Summit, but like I did not get that feeling from older albums. They had a it was tight. The production was very tight, as I think almost all bands in this sort of style have very tight production, but it was not cold and it wasn't sterile sounding. It was very a lot of harmony and just the sound was very full. So that was one of my big complaints. But also I felt like there was just a lot of mindless sections that just didn't seem connected. And I know he had a lot of guest people. Every track seemed like it had a different guest person, which is fine. Intervals has done that several times. Polyphia does that a lot. But I never feel like when I listen to a Polyphia track that things are just completely disconnected. And that was kind of the feel I got from Scale the Summit. So I would say, that's the one thing I would say. She really has nothing to work on as far as it comes to guitar playing, because she's leagues beyond, pretty much most, 90%, I would say like 95, 97% of the population when it comes to guitar playing. She doesn't really need to worry about any of that. It's really just the songwriting part of it and making tracks that flow so they appeal to a larger audience without sacrificing what makes you special, which is her incredible talent on the instrument. So that's really the thing I would say to her. So her set ended. We had about a 20-minute setup or so, moving into NeO Obliviscaris. So NeO came up, and at this point the crowd, it was about 75% full at this point. So I had moved, and you'll see in this video, a little bit over towards the left side, and that would continue. I would move further and further closer to the wall as Wintersun, because by the time Wintersun came up, the venue was totally packed. It was I don't know if it was a complete sellout, but it certainly felt like it. There was almost no room. So NeO came up. The crowd was super into it, and they opened up with Devour Me Colossus, both parts 1 and 2. Part 1 is the bulk of the song. Part 2 is more of a coda to this epic track. And Devour Me Colossus is one of my favorite songs from them. I would say like top five for me. Maybe like it sits somewhere around number 3 or number 4. And I was, I knew their set list was going to be short because their songs are all friggin' long. So they played 6 songs. And I figured I was probably not going to get my favorite song, which is Petrichor Weave's Black Noise, but I figured that was not going to be in the cards. Now, they did play a show the day before in Orlando, which they added last minute as a headliner. And they played like 12 songs, and they did play, in fact, they opened with a Petrichor Weave's Black Noise. And played a bunch of other cool, like, hidden gem tracks that, are like less common, tracks, I think, for them. Crazy to me that they played that show in Orlando the day before, and then I assume flew to Atlanta for a show the next day. Guys are just road warriors. So my hats off to them. They sounded freaking fantastic. The band was just ultra tight. And I'll play this little section here from Devour Me Colossus. And for those of you who have never heard this song, this is about a 13-minute song-ish, about 13. And then part 2, this part is Black Holes. Part 2 is Contortions, I think, is the subtitle of the second part of it. And that one's mainly it is an instrumental, but it's more of like a coda to the actual main track, which is this one. At about 9 minutes, actually I would say at about 6 minutes, there's a crazy shift in this song. It starts out very heavy, very balls to the wall. Good opening track in that regard because it really gets people pumped up. There was a big pit going on in the middle. I'm too old for that shit, so I kind of moved myself over towards the side, like I said, a little more. And so at around 6 minutes, the song sort of cycles down and then kind of cycles back up. And then at 9 minutes, there is an incredible riff that leads all the way out to the end of the song that is just, it's all bass driven. And it's just unbelievable. It's such an incredible compositional work because you have this incredible bass riff, and it's all so incredibly synchronized. The drums and the bass and guitar are just perfectly synced. You'll hear some of it here. This is coming in about a minute and a half into the riff, because I was too busy headbanging to start recording at the beginning of the riff. But I did kind of, I wanted to get some of this, so people could get a feel for just how awesome and how great these guys are as a band in a live setting. So this is Devour Me Colossus. Alright, so that was Devour Me Colossus. And then we had, so those were the first 2 tracks. Then we went into track 3, the third song, which was Intravenous, which they really have two singles. And they haven't, calling them a single is kind of not exactly an accurate term, because Intravenous was their only actual music video. So they did a music video for Intravenous. So I guess if you were to say that, in proper sense, is really their only single. But the song that they're most well known for, of course, is Plague Flowers of Kaleidoscope, which I think everyone knew they were going to close with that song. So that was not really a surprise that that was saved to the end. So Intravenous was song 3. Very good song. It's not one of my favorites from them. I didn't love the production on Earn as much as on Portal of Eye. To me is like a benchmark for production. It's just incredible. The balance between all the instruments is phenomenal. Citadel, I think, was a slight step backwards, and Earn a slight step backwards even from that. So, but I mean, we're really getting into, fine detail, because those, they don't have a bad album. Those 3 records are all amazing, and just showcase just at the incredible level these guys are playing at. And I mean, as you heard from that section, just the incredible, harmony between those instruments. I mean, a lot of that is all mirrored. So drums, bass, guitar are all in a way mirroring each other. Not playing the exact same notes per se, although there is one section where they actually are playing. There's a bass guitar harmony for a brief section of that. But it's just, it really is a great end to an epic track. In some ways, NeO Obliviscaris reminds me of Tool. So bear with me for that, because that might sound really strange, because we're talking about Tool and a progressive death metal band, melodic progressive death metal, whatever you want to call them. But I think the thing that always really impressed me about Tool is the way that they construct their songs. They build to these incredible climaxes. If you think of like songs like Schism and Vicarious and 46 and 2, those songs are building to an incredible climax. And they keep stacking on top of each other. Sections, riffs, everything, to build to this, amazing ending. And that's kind of what you get with, I would say that's what you get with this particular track. You get, that build to the end of the song. So after Intravenous, we had Saturn Spheres, which is, that's Libra, I believe. And then Earn, Part 2, and I forget what the subtitle for that particular track is. Both awesome songs. This was an incredible set. I mean, top to bottom, great songs. And each one of these songs had sections that really got the crowd into the song. I would say if there was any song that the crowd wasn't quite as involved in, ironically, it's probably Intravenous. And I think that's partly because the song is meant to be, and I don't know if this was intentional on their part, it's more of a little more mainstream, which, I mean, it's not like it's a short song, but it's, but for NeO Obliviscaris, it's a short song. So I think that was one of the things that was interesting about all other 5 songs on this set list, with the exception of the little coda to Devour Me Colossus. All of those songs had parts that really grabbed the audience and really seemed to get them into it. So, and then they finished with Plague Flowers of Kaleidoscope, which, I mean, you can't argue with that. I mean, it's when you look on YouTube and you bring this, you see like so many reaction channels have reacted to this song, and I think what's interesting about the song is it's off their first album, and I think the reason why it catches people so much is because of that incredibly unique sound with the interplay of this full band. You have two singers. You have clean vocals. You have black and death metal vocals, both, which I really want to commend, particularly Zen, for what is really an incredible vocal performance, because he has such variance in his vocals. And I mean, a lot of people, when they look at extreme vocals, they're like, oh, it's all just screaming or growling or whatever. But there's a huge difference between sections of, say, Plague Flowers of Kaleidoscope and like the almost black metal vocals that he does in some parts of, like, a Petrichor Weaves Black Noise has that. To me, that's really impressive to be able to shift. Sometimes even within the same phrase, he'll move from, like really high up in the throat to, a growl, which I think is just so impressive. I love that, and I love the counterpoint, of the clean vocals that you get from that. So, props to them for that. So this is the little intro section, the beautiful violin intro to Plague Flowers of Kaleidoscope. Okay. All right. So before we get into Wintersun, so I just want to do just really quick say that, like, man, seeing, particularly I would say Plague Flowers of Kaleidoscope, seeing that song live, it was really, really a transcendent experience. I mean, there were times when you just close your eyes and the music just sort of pulls you away. There's a couple songs they have that really do that. Forget Not, I think, is one for me, and Petrichor Weaves Black Noise is another one. So I really I thought they did an incredible set. This was definitely a show where I would have really liked to see a double headliner. I would have loved to see both of these bands play for 2 hours, and obviously that's not something you get that often, but it was really outside of a festival setting, but it was really something special. Really great set. So then we had about I would say 20 minutes or so downtime, 15-20 minutes downtime. While they set up for Wintersun. Like I said, at this point, the crowd there was very little room, and you can see when I bring up the video again, you'll see I'm shifted further over to the left side of the stage. I'm right up against the wall, and actually, you'll see as the videos progress, I get more and more backed up into the wall. Part of it was because of the massive pit that was in the middle. There was a huge pit that Yari is just an insane frontman. We'll get into that. But it's nuts, man. So Wintersun came out. They opened with let me see the set. I have the set list here. The Earn song, by the way, was As Embers Dance in Our Eyes. So that was Earn Part 2. And then Libera, my Latin sucks, for Saturn Spheres. So, and then for Wintersun, they opened with Awaken from the Dark Slumber, Spring. And again, I think you see this all the time, particularly with metal bands. They love to open shows with big heavy hitters at the start. Which, yeah, you want to really, get the energy of the crowd up, and then you usually kind of drop to a couple mid-tempo songs and then bring it back up again with a really big song. And you'll see that throughout their set list. So, Awaken from the Dark Slumber, which is a long song from Four Seasons, the first song on the album. I would say it's probably their second or third favorite on that album for me. The track they did not play, I thought was the smart choice, because the Autumn is the weakest track in my opinion. So they did Winter, they did Summer. And Summer has this great ending, this great epic ending with that really gets the whole crowd singing along. Spring has that too. Actually, towards the middle of that song, there's some great sections there where the crowd gets really involved and stuff. And man, like I said, the energy that Yari has is unbelievable. He's like, if you took a supernova and then put it into a frontman, that is what you would get. He is just like pure energy, and he gives 170% into his vocal performance. You totally understand now why he does not play guitar anymore, because it really would hamper his ability to be an incredible frontman. I think, especially considering the quality of the guitar playing you have in the other two guys, you don't need. Timo's awesome. You don't need him playing guitar. Yeah, he's an incredible guitar player. He wrote this whole album was the Four Seasons was all him. He did everything himself. So it's crazy to me to say that as a guitar player, but man, I wouldn't have it any other way after seeing him perform, because he just gives you so much energy, and just his vocal performance, I don't know how. And there's an interesting story about him as well. When he was young, I don't know how old he was, but when he was younger, he had tuberculosis and lost, I believe, 40% of one of his lungs. It's amazing to me that he is able to sing with the incredible range that he has, from growls to almost. He doesn't go into black metal territory to the extent that like Zen does on some phrases and stuff, but he gets pretty high up there at certain points, and then his clean vocals and screams, like he can do almost like a Halford-esque scream, and it's insane. He is like, I would say too, he's a better live singer than he is on the record. Which is crazy, because his vocals on especially Loneliness Winter are incredible, but he was just out of this world good this whole show, and it's unbelievable. Just an incredible performance. So Awaken from the Dark Slumber is what they started with, and it's interesting to me because that's, like I said, it's not one of my favorite songs, but I thought it was a really good choice to open with. And then they went into Winter Madness, which is the perfect, sort of, you could open with Winter Madness, but I think Awaken from the Dark Slumber actually gives you more crowd interaction moments, where Winter Madness doesn't have that. Winter Madness is just balls to the wall, pure speed with just a ridiculous, like one of the most ridiculous guitar solos ever. And so it was really cool to see that live. I couldn't get a great vantage. In fact, let me go to the video because I got the video here. And this is a short video of the end of this. Well, from the middle to the end of the solo for Winter Madness. So. All right, so that was Winter Madness, and then from there, we moved into two slower songs to kind of bring things down a little bit, in Sleeping in Stars and Star Child, which are great songs, which have some really good moments for the crowd to really sing along. The crowd was singing melody lines for some of these slower songs, like this one. Which is always cool. Like, that's like a thing I always love about, like, for example, Iron Maiden. When you go see Iron Maiden, like, the crowd will be singing, like, the melody line for, Fear of the Dark, and stuff like that. So I have always loved that. And so, these two tracks were great, I think, in terms of their placement. And then he went into, for me, what was the two best back-to-back songs, with the exception of maybe the end, which was a great back-to-back song combo as well, in Loneliness Winter and Sons of Winter and Stars. So I'm going to play a clip here of Loneliness Winter, and I want to preface this a little bit before I play the clip by saying that the recording, I think, of these videos actually came out pretty good. The acoustics in this venue are fantastic. So they're not terrible like some other videos that I've shot from some other concerts. But this just does not begin to do justice to the incredible vocals that Yari puts into these songs. It's unbelievable how much emotion, particularly in this song, there is. So we'll listen to that one right now. Yeah, so I mean, just beautiful. I mean, there's nothing more you can say about that. That was one of the things I was looking forward to seeing most. And then to follow that up, the thing, of course, I think everyone was looking forward to the most, which was Sons of Winter and Stars. I have a couple clips from this one. This is, trying to remember where on the song this is. I think this is just one of the riffs before the slower section, like the folk section in the middle, and I think it was what they call the riff, what Yari calls the God riff or whatever, but I can't remember for certain. And then the second clip, the second clip is the chorus, and you get to hear me sing like an idiot, because I was singing the whole show during and which I think really was what wrecked my voice, was singing, trying to sing, because I cannot do, not very well anyways, harsh vocals. So trying to scream along with NeO Obliviscaris, I think, kind of wrecked my voice a little bit. So wasn't too great. You know, it is what it is, but you know, you got to put it out there, because I think you really have to show just how much the crowd loves this song. It's you can't accurately describe just how in love with this song the crowd is. And I think it's by far and away their most popular song. I mean, with their crowd. I'm sure that people have other songs they like more, but as far as in a live setting, when you have a whole group of other like-minded fans and you're all singing along, there is nothing that beats Sons of Winter and Stars. So this is we'll just roll these clips back to back, because there's two of them. So let me go here and there. Okay, so that brings us to, um, the end of the show. You had, after that, that great set of two songs, you had "The Forest That Weeps Summer," which I mentioned that one earlier, so I'm not going to spend any time talking about it, because this review has already gone pretty long. And then we have the new song, "Storm." So I want to talk just real briefly about "Storm." It's hard, without hearing a studio version of it, it's hard to get a real 100% feel for the song. But this is the craziest song that they have done since their first album. I think this song is actually more insane on guitar than Winter Madness. There is an extended solo that opens up the song, and then there's just an absolutely ridiculous solo at the, like, towards more than halfway through, like towards the end, closer towards the end. The song is fast. It's like 7 or 8 minutes. I think it was 7 minutes 45 seconds long or something like that, and it just pummels you. There's a couple small breaks, but for the most part, this song is just balls to the wall, ultra fast, ultra heavy. I think people are going to really like the studio version of this song. It's in a way, it reminded me a little bit of the Dark Slumber, Awaken from the Dark Slumber, in that it really comes out of the gate hitting very, very hard. So I think it's going to be I think that's going to be awesome. The two songs that we've heard from Time 2, and we don't know how many songs are on Time 2. We know of 3. We've heard 2. Storm and Ring of Fire. I think it's called Ring of Fire, or the something Fire. I think Ring of Fire. I think that's what it is called. And then Silver Leaves, which Yari has spoken about before, saying it's a highly emotional song. It hasn't been sung yet. We haven't heard it, but it's been referred to as part of Time 2. We don't know how many other songs there are in Time 2, but we know that, most likely it's probably only like 5 or 6 songs. So, we've heard probably, he's written at least half the album at this point, if not all of the album. Now, obviously, he hasn't recorded it. He wants this studio to be built. The studio is being built, so including the famous sauna. So that brings us to the last 2 songs, which I thought was a beautiful, great 1-2 punch to close out the show, which was their fastest song. And you already made a great joke about making the drummer earn his keep, because Battle Against Time is just a freaking ridiculous song. It's so fast. And this poor drummer, man, has been playing his ass off. And I don't know if it's Kai. I know Kai plays with him a lot, but, Kai also has duties in Nightwish. So I don't know if Kai was on the tour with them or who the drummer is currently for them. I believe it was Kai, but I don't know 100%. But man, I mean, this song is just ridiculous, and the crowd was really into this one. It's got a lot of sections, where the crowd can kind of they can sing along, and so that's always a good one. And then they did their fake we're done, and then came out and did the encore, which was Time. And so I have that here for you guys to see. And that's the final video, so we'll switch over to that. Oh, there we go.
Are you saying no? Still want to hear something? You got the energy. You got some energy for us. All right. You're not in a hurry to go anywhere? Do you still got time? Well, that's convenient, because this next song is titled Time. Okay, so now is your last chance to use your last drop of energy you got and go fucking crazy. Can you do that? Are you ready?
All right, so, and I think it just really illustrates just how awesome of a frontman he is. And there was a lot of funny moments throughout, like, with him interacting with the crowd. And one of my favorite bits was when he was after Summer, he said that he asked how everyone's Summer was, and he said over in Norway. Or not over in Norway, sorry, over in Finland. it's almost, you know, it's almost winter. And it was like, why do you think we're touring the U.S. right now? So I thought that was pretty funny. It's like, it sucks. So that was I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting dichotomy, because one of the things I love so much about Wintersun's music is how much it celebrates the beauty and sort of majesty of those beautiful landscapes. Whether it's and the same thing is true of black metal, like especially some of the more atmospheric black metal, really celebrates, that the harshness and coldness, but also that there's sort of a cold beauty to, the Norwegian and Finnish and Swedish, those Scandinavian countries, that it's a harsh climate, but there's a lot of beauty there as well. And that's one of the things that I really love about Wintersun's music. Their music evokes that to me very heavily, which is great. Anyways, so that was the final song. After that, they talked with the crowd a little bit, threw some pics and stuff, and I began my trek back to the hotel. So that was it for the show. Just an incredible show. I mean, like I said, one of the best I've ever been to, and I think it may be the best overall for me. So it was something really special. So well worth freaking $25, which to me, I almost feel like I'm stealing from these bands, because $25 is nowhere near enough for comparatively to the experience I get from Metallica. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the Metallica show I went to last year. I had a lot of fun. Seeing them in a big stadium like that is cool. You're really far away, but it's awesome. You're with so many fans, and there's that experience. But I mean, damn, it's like, and it's a long show. You get your money's worth. You're there for several. I mean, you're it's not just 3 hours. It's a lot longer than that. So, I mean, but $25. That's why I felt I had to get several T-shirts, because the merch is how these guys make their money. And you're talking two bands that are coming from overseas, Australia for NeO Obliviscaris, and Finland for Wintersun. So I mean, it's just crazy. These bands, they need to be making a lot more money than they're making, just support the bands you love. And I think on that note, I'm going to end this review. Hopefully I'll get to do some more reactions for you guys soon. I really just want to get my thoughts down on this show. Yeah, if you guys if you get a chance and you're watching this and you're on the fence about going to see this show, go. It's the best $25 you'll ever spend. So, Calandros out. Have a good one, guys.